In a not-so-distant future, Earth was on the brink of collapse. Climate change and the unchecked exploitation of natural resources opened a dimensional rift in the depths of the Pacific Ocean. This rift, known as the Rift, released a series of monstrous creatures, the feared rift beasts. With gleaming scales and eyes that shone with a supernatural light, these creatures emerged from the depths, leaving a trail of desolation in their wake. The coastal cities, once vibrant, became zones of terror. Porto Nova, one of the hardest hit, saw its inhabitants in panic, trying to escape the chaos. Sirens echoed, announcing the arrival of a new attack. The sky, once blue, now turned dark, while the waves churned violently. The population watched, horrified, as Leviathan, a colossal rift beast, rose from the waters, its imposing form casting shadows over the city. In the midst of the disaster, humanity organized itself. The Guardians, enormous combat robots, were created to face this new threat. Trained pilots controlled these machines, forming a line of defense against the creatures. Among these pilots stood Lena and Kai, whose personal stories were intertwined with the tragedy that plagued the world. Lena, an exceptional mechanic, had stepped away from combat after the loss of her brother in a previous attack. Her skill in building and enhancing mechs was undeniable, but the pain and guilt kept her away from the fight. In contrast, Kai, a former pilot, carried the weight of his own tragedy. The death of his partner during a battle had left him devastated, and he isolated himself, struggling with pain and a sense of inadequacy. However, the urgency of the situation allowed no more hesitation. With the city under attack, the authorities summoned all available guardians. Lena, driven by the memory of her brother, decided it was time to act. Kai, sensing the imminent danger, felt the call of duty echoing in his heart, leading him to join the fight once again. The battle against Leviathan began. The Guardians mobilized and the city trembled under the force of the creature. Titanus, the mech piloted by Lena and Kai, advanced for confrontation, facing the fury of Leviathan. The fight was fierce, with both pilots utilizing their skills to try to control the situation. However, Leviathan was agile and powerful, and the city suffered devastating damage during the clash. Despite their efforts, the battle was not without sacrifices. Destruction spread, and a sense of helplessness overtook the Guardians as they fought to protect the citizens. When they finally managed to defeat the creature, the victory felt bitter, as the consequences of the attack were evident in every corner of the city. With Porto Nova in ruins and the population in shock, the Guardians gathered in their underwater base. Commander Drake, an experienced veteran, assessed the devastation. Images of the destroyed city reflected the harsh reality. The rift was still open, and more creatures were on the way. The fight was just beginning. Meanwhile, Lena and Kai found each other amidst the rubble, feeling the weight of what they had just experienced. The battle had tested their skills and determination, but it had also revealed the need for them to unite. The future was uncertain, but a new connection was beginning to form between them, an alliance that could become vital in the fight against the rift beasts and the dark forces that inhabited the rift. In a not-so-distant future, Earth was on the brink of collapse. Climate change and the rampant exploitation of natural resources had opened an interdimensional rift in the depths of the Pacific Ocean. This rift, known as the Rift, unleashed a series of monstrous creatures, the feared rift beasts. With shimmering scales and eyes that glowed with a supernatural light, these creatures emerged from the depths, leaving a trail of desolation in their wake. Coastal cities, once vibrant, had become zones of terror. Porto Nova, one of the hardest hit, saw its inhabitants in panic, trying to escape the chaos. Sirens echoed, announcing the arrival of a new attack. The sky, once blue, was now darkening as the waves churned violently. The population watched in terror as Leviathan, a colossal rift beast, rose from the waters, its imposing form casting shadows over the city. Amid the disaster, humanity organized itself. The Guardians, enormous combat robots, were created to confront this new threat. Trained pilots controlled these machines, forming a line of defense against the creatures. Among these pilots were Lena and Kai, whose personal stories were intertwined with the tragedy that plagued the world. Lena, an exceptional mechanic, had stepped back from combat after the loss of her brother in a previous attack. Her skill in building and improving mechs was undeniable, but the pain and guilt kept her away from the fight. In contrast, Kai, a former pilot, bore the weight of his own tragedy. The death of his partner during a battle had devastated him, and he isolated himself, struggling with the pain and feelings of inadequacy. However, the urgency of the situation allowed for no more hesitation. With the city under attack, the authorities called upon all available guardians. Lena, driven by the memory of her brother, decided it was time to act. Kai, sensing the imminent danger, felt the call of duty echoing in his heart, leading him to join the fight once more. The battle against Leviathan began. The guardians mobilized, and the city trembled under the creature's force. Titanus, the mech piloted by Lena and Kai, advanced to confront the Leviathan's fury. The fight was fierce, with both pilots using their skills to try to control the situation. However, Leviathan was agile and powerful, and the city suffered devastating damage during the clash. Despite their efforts, the battle was not without sacrifices. Destruction spread, and a sense of helplessness took over the Guardians as they fought to protect the citizens. When they finally managed to defeat the creature, the victory felt bitter, as the consequences of the attack were evident in every corner of the city. With Porto Nova in ruins and the population in shock, the Guardians gathered in their underwater base. Commander Drake, an experienced veteran, analyzed the devastation. Images of the destroyed city reflected the harsh reality. The rift was still open, and more creatures were coming. The fight was just beginning. Meanwhile, Lena and Kai found themselves amidst the rubble, feeling the weight of what they had just experienced. The battle had tested their skills and determination, but it had also revealed the necessity of their unity. The future was uncertain, but a new connection was beginning to form between them. An alliance that could become vital in the fight against the rift beasts and the dark forces that inhabited the rift. As the days went by, the tension in the Guardians' underwater base increased. Commander Drake had received reports that a new wave of rift beasts was approaching the coast. Preparations were underway, and each team member knew that the battle would be more intense and challenging than any they had faced before. The atmosphere in the command room was somber. Holograms projected the image of the rift, pulsing like a malignant heart, while the analyses showed a series of creatures approaching rapidly. Lena and Kai, now a cohesive team, were ready to pilot Titanus again. The intense training and emotional connection they had developed gave them confidence, but the reality of combat still loomed over them like a shadow. On the morning of the attack, the sirens sounded and the team quickly mobilized. The sound of metal clashing and the hum of engines filled the air. Each Guardian headed to their mecha, adrenaline coursing through their veins. Lena adjusted the controls of Titanus, while Kai took a deep breath, focusing on leaving behind the memories of his lost partner. The moment required total focus. When Titanus emerged from the waters, the sky was laden with dark clouds, and the tension in the air was palpable. In the distance, the silhouettes of the rift beasts began to take shape. They were diverse. Some moved with agility, while others were immense and brutal, as if wanting to dominate the battlefield. As the creatures attacked, the battle began. Leviathan, the same creature that had devastated Porto Nova previously, led the charge. Titanus, under the command of Lena and Kai, advanced to confront it. The coordination between them was almost telepathic, the result of days of training and mutual understanding. The fight was fierce. Titanus delivered powerful blows, but the rift beasts were resilient. A wave of terror swept through the city as one of the creatures lunged toward a residential area, its claws dragging across the ground. Lena and Kai needed to act quickly. They used a flanking maneuver they had trained for, positioning Titanus to intercept the creature before it could cause further damage. The impacts resonated like thunder, and explosions of energy illuminated the dark sky. The waves churned with the force of the collisions, while the city cried out for protection. Lena felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders, but Kai's presence beside her brought new strength. Together they danced amid the chaos, evading the creature's attacks and counterattacking with precision. During the confrontation, a new rift beast, a colossal creature named Brutalis, entered the scene, drawing Titanus's attention. With its massive body and sharp teeth, Brutalis attacked with fury, and Titanus had to swerve quickly to avoid a devastating blow. The battle intensified, and the Guardians team began to feel the weight of the fight. The attacks became more chaotic. Titanus was surrounded, facing Leviathan on one side and Brutalis on the other. An unexpected blow caused Titanus to lose its balance, and the city watched in horror as the creature approached, ready for a lethal attack. However, Lena and Kai focused, connecting on a deeper level. They remembered what they were fighting to protect, and decided they would not give up. With a silent cry of determination, Lena maneuvered Titanus into a defensive position. Kai, sensing Brutalis's weakness, used the mecha's long-range weapon to deliver a precise strike. The creature, caught by surprise, hesitated. Seizing the opportunity, Lena launched a combined attack with an energy strike that made the creature retreat. The fight continued, but victory was within reach. With a joint effort, Titanus attacked Leviathan and Brutalis in a decisive maneuver. The impact was powerful, and the creatures, finally defeated, retreated in despair, returning to the depths of the ocean. The battlefield fell silent, except for the sound of waves crashing on the shore. The city, though damaged, still stood. The Guardians, exhausted and sweating, gathered in a circle, breathing deeply, feeling the weight of the battle. The victory came at a cost, but it was an important step in the fight against the Rift Beasts. As Titanus moved away towards the base, Lena and Kai exchanged looks of understanding. The battle had tested their skills and strengthened their connection. They knew that the war was far from over, but together, they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. After the victory against Leviathan and Brutalis, the atmosphere in the Guardians' underwater base was one of relief, but the shadow of uncertainty loomed over everyone. Although the battle had been won, the information collected about the Rift Beasts revealed something alarming. A malevolent intelligence was behind the creatures, an entity known only as the Architect. This dark force seemed to have deep control over the creatures emerging from the rift. Meetings in the command room became more frequent. Commander Drake and the other Guardians discussed the information gathered. The team analyzed the data, trying to decipher the pattern of the Rift Beasts' attacks and discover what the Architect truly wanted. Lena, immersed in her studies, began to piece together the puzzle. She remembered her previous investigations, the anomalies she had noticed in the rift. Something inside her suggested that the Architect was not just an entity, but a force that fed on fear and pain. This realization made her feel an increasing urgency. She knew that to defeat this threat, they would need to go to the heart of the rift. Lena and Kai, now more connected than ever, decided it was time to gather the team and devise an attack plan. Commander Drake, recognizing their commitment, agreed to form an elite team to invade the rift. The mission would be risky, but the only way to end the threat of the Architect was to confront it directly. Preparations began. Lena worked tirelessly to enhance Titanus, equipping it with new defense systems and weaponry. She knew the rift was an unknown environment, fraught with dangers. Kai, for his part, dedicated himself to training and strengthening the neural connection with Lena, as their synergy would be crucial to face what lay ahead. On the eve of the mission, the team gathered for a final strategy session. Everyone was aware of the risks, but the determination in their eyes was undeniable. Each member knew they were fighting for something greater, not just for their lives, but for the survival of humanity. Fear was replaced by courage, and together they set off for the rift. As Titanus approached the rift, the environment became oppressive. Energy emanated from the rift like a deafening scream, and the flickering lights of the rift beasts could be seen in the depths. Lena and Kai took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the mission ahead of them. They were about to enter unknown territory where reality itself seemed distorted. As they crossed the rift's edge, they were welcomed by a dark world. Creatures moved in the shadows, watching them with hungry eyes. The air was thick with a strange, almost palpable energy. Lena and Kai activated Titanus's alert systems, prepared for any unexpected attack. As they advanced, they began to sense the presence of the Architect. It was a disconcerting feeling, as if they were being watched, guided by an invisible force. The rift pulsed, and the reality around them seemed to change, as if space itself was being shaped by the will of the Architect. After some time facing the challenges of the environment, Titanus finally reached a central chamber where the rift opened into an endless abyss. In the center, a colossal figure began to take shape, an entity composed of shadows and light, with a presence that radiated power. It was the Architect. The battle began. The entity unleashed waves of energy that reverberated through the space, and Titanus had to dodge quickly to avoid devastating attacks. Lena and Kai worked in perfect harmony, using Titanus's abilities to counterattack. They struck blows, but it seemed that the architect was immune to their weapons. Each attack only seemed to strengthen the entity. Desperate, Lena realized they were fighting against something more than a physical being. The architect fed on their fears and insecurities, and each blow they dealt only intensified its strength. They needed to find a way to destabilize it. Lena remembered her research on the rift. If the architect was fed by fear, perhaps they could turn the situation around. With a new plan in mind, she began to channel her emotional energy. All the memories of pain, loss, and sadness transformed into determination and strength. Kai felt this change, and together they unleashed a concentrated energy attack, not just physical, but emotional. The wave of energy radiated through the space, hitting the architect. The entity hesitated, and Lena and Kai seized the opportunity. They combined their attacks into a single powerful blow, an attack that represented not just their skills, but also the hope for a future free from pain and fear. The chamber exploded with light, and the architect let out a deafening scream of despair. The entity began to disintegrate, its shadows dissipating into the light. With one last effort, Lena and Kai delivered the final blow, and the architect vanished, taking with it the negative energy that fueled the rift beasts. When the light finally dissipated, the environment around them began to change. The creatures that once inhabited the rift retreated, as if the presence of the architect had abandoned them. Lena and Kai, exhausted, looked at each other, the realization of what they had just accomplished beginning to set in. They had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, but they knew that the battle for humanity's survival was far from over. With the rift now closed, a new hope was rising. Together they had learned to connect, to fight, and to overcome their fears. And as Titanus moved away from what remained of the rift, they were ready to face whatever challenges the future held. After the defeat of the architect, the atmosphere in the Guardians' underwater base was filled with new energy. The team had faced one of humanity's greatest threats and emerged victorious. However, what had once been a feeling of euphoria was now transforming into reflection. The battle had not only been against an evil entity, but also against the internal fears each one carried. Lena and Kai, still recovering from the intense battle, gathered with Commander Drake and the other Guardians. The command room was filled with holograms showing the now closed rift, and data on the rift beasts was being analyzed. Despite the victory, there was a sense that the world was still not completely safe. Drake began the conversation, expressing his gratitude to everyone. He praised the team's courage and strength, but also emphasized that the battle had merely revealed the world's fragility. The rift has been closed, but we must not forget that others may arise. We need to be prepared. The Guardians agreed. The victory against the architect had been an important step, but the fight for humanity's survival continued. Lena, now with a new perspective, decided that her mission was not just to repair mechas, but also to help train others to become Guardians. She wanted more people to be prepared to face the unknown. Kai, for his part, began to open up about his experience. He realized that the pain of the past could not be forgotten, but could be used as strength. He became a mentor to new pilots, sharing his stories and teaching them to confront their own fears. He understood that true courage was not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. As the team restructured, Lena and Kai began to work on a new project, an alert system to detect any anomalous activity in the depths of the ocean. With their combined skills in engineering and piloting, they were determined to ensure that humanity was always a step ahead of any threat. Time passed, and life in Porto Nova began to rise again. The scars of battle were still present, but the determination of the people was palpable. People came together to rebuild their homes and lives, inspired by the courage of the Guardians. Lena and Kai became central figures in the community, organizing events and talks about the importance of being prepared for the unknown. On a sunny day, as citizens gathered to celebrate the resilience of Porto Nova, Lena and Kai stood at the center of the square, surrounded by children and adults. They shared stories about their battles, not only against the rift beasts, but also against their own fears. Their words resonated deeply, inspiring a new generation to rise and fight for what is right. As they watched people unite, Lena and Kai felt a wave of hope. The connection they had formed during the battle was not just about piloting a mecha, but about the strength of community and unity. They realized that the true legacy they would leave was the courage and determination to fight, not only for themselves, but for everyone around them. And so, the story reached a new beginning. Although challenges were still to come, Lena, Kai, and the entire Guardians team were ready. They learned that true strength lies in unity, overcoming fears, and the determination to protect the world. With the city of Porto Nova rising again and renewed hope, a new era began. And as the sun set on the horizon, Lena and Kai knew that together, they could face any storm the future held.